Good evening, England. Hang on a minute. It's good afternoon, America, or good morning, depending on what side of the country you're on. We are kick-starting our USA week, and it starts with Sebastian, who's coming all the way from Massachusetts for us. So thank you so much, mate, for joining us.
Absolutely.
And I will hand straight over to you, buddy, and good luck.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Sebastian Langman-Kirtley, balayage artist for L'Oreal Professional, and I'm also a salon owner from the beautiful state of Massachusetts on the east coast of the USA. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to share with you some of my signature balayage techniques. That being said, I think that due to our times right now, balayage can be an especially useful thing to have in your portfolio or your toolbox. And right now, people are coming back to the salons. I'm starting work again on Wednesday. So I haven't been to work in 2.5 months, and I know that my clients are going to want everything all at once. The root shadows, the glosses, the balayage, the highlights, all the things, and I'm going to be super pressed for time. So the way that I do balayage is extremely time effective. I really go by the overall look. So I think that once you get the hang of that and really knowing the head shape can be very useful for you too. People are going to be more financially conscious. Balayage is super low maintenance. Some of my clients only come once a year. And on top of that, if you've got a client that's been getting foil highlights for 15 years and you want a switcher, this is a great time to do it because people are looking to change. You know, we've all been through this massive traumatic thing in catharsis, and now people want to come out of their shells, be beautiful. So I say, let's capitalize on our creativity and give them something new. So without further ado, I am going to get started painting my head. Now I'm going to show you two different techniques, but balayage is completely customizable, so you can blend them together. So what I'm going to do here is start in the front of the head, but I want to show you my sectioning. I'm just sectioned out just above the crown to the mastoid bone, which is right behind the ear, and I've just split the head from front to back. So what I'm going to do is I do traditional balayage, the French style with the plastic and the cotton and all that. So I'm going to be doing my method that I usually use behind the chair in the salon. So I use the head shape a lot to dictate my section. So I'm going to clip up at parietal here. And I'm going to go in my first subsection from behind the ear to about an inch up. You know, very important part is this part that falls right above the ear. This part, I find, it bounces off the shoulder and frames the jaw beautifully. So I always want to have this as part of my extended take. So I use a planchette. I apply my product to the planchette. Break it down for you. I apply the product to the planchette vertically. I use a well brush. This brush only goes in the bowl of product. This brush only goes onto the hair. So I like to keep everything nice and neat. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little check mark of hair right above the ear. And I'm going to take some product. I'm going to start in the middle of my subsection. And you'll hear me. So zone 1. When I say zone 1, it means closest to the root. Zone 2 is the mid-length of the hair, and zone 3 is going to be the ends. So yeah, just all surface painting through zones 1 and 2, and the ends we get full saturation of the piece. And what this gives you is a very low maintenance outgrowth with a lot of pop through the ends. So when I'm talking my placement, I'm always thinking about how hair looks after a summer at the beach. So hair naturally in sunlight will lighten on the perimeter. So through the ends on the surfaces. The question of where I'm going to place my pieces, I always go back to that in my mind. So I'm doing single point application right here. Single point application is going to give me the most pop and the most contrast. And so right around the frame of the face and whatever's going to bounce off the shoulders, I like to have a lot of contrast there because it really illuminates the contours of the bone structure. So in this case, single points, one above the ear and one right in front of it. I'm going to place my plastic here, wrap it around, and then what I'll do is on the face frame, I will over direct the hair back away from the face. And it's really important that you smooth that hair. You have to have good tension, or else your balayage will get spotty and you'll have like little bleeders and messy looking spots. So for this, right on the hairline, I'm going to come straight back, very gently, just dabbing that product on there. It's very important that you have a feather light touch with balayage because you don't have the protection of foil. So the foil would encapsulate, but balayage is open air. So if I get a little bit too much product close to the root, it creates a little bit of a bleeder or a hot spot. But if I start a little further down the strand of hair, I have wiggle room. So if I need to feather up, I can do that.
So thank you very much again, Sebastian. There's a lot of people joined in now since. So just to introduce you again, this is Sebastian, who's come all the way from Massachusetts. We have one question actually from John Anthony, who's in Blackpool, England, who says, "Do you live near Salem?"
Oh, I live about 2 hours south of Salem,
Oh,
but I'm very familiar with Salem and the witch trials.
awesome.
I love Salem. We go every Halloween.
Daryl Starkey Gettins, who's an artist who's appeared on here from England before, he's saying he's very excited for this and loves a freehand balayage.
Oh, I love it too, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And then the last one before I let you crack on is Lisa Harrington has asked, what lightener/bleach have you used?
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm using a multi-techniques powder from L'Oreal Professional, and I'm using it with the only developer that I have in my house, which is Lockdown. So I have a 20 volume, and that will give me about 8 levels of lift, and it's my go-to for balayage because it's very, very fast to lift, and I work pretty tightly booked in the salon.
They've also asked, do you have any powder? Is it a powder or a clay? Is there any additives involved?
It's a powder lightener. It's a powder lightener, and I have it mixed at a 1-to-2 ratio of powder to developer. This product, I've seen people use it much looser than that for balayage. I know people use 1-to-3 sometimes, or even thicker, but that's my personal preference. I'll show you the consistency here of my product. So I like to, if I can, move it around with my well brush in the bowl, and I can see like a little bit of shine on it. That's usually a good texture to paint with. I like to be able to stir it up and lift it away and see a little bit dangling on my brush there. So when I have that, that's when I know it's a good consistency. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm working my way up the head. Did the same thing, but in this subsection, I started my piece further to the front, and I dropped my saturation down further towards the back. And what that will give it is the look of natural negative space living in the hair in the interior. So when I talk about negative space, and I talk about it a lot, it's a very, very important piece of balayage. I'm just talking about depth. So if you don't have enough negative space in your design, then what happens is all the hair ends up looking one color, and then the maintenance becomes high. So with negative space, I always want the natural hair color to be the dominant color in my design. And one of my mentors likes to say it's the space between the music, it's the space between the notes that make the music, and it's the space between the highlights that make them pop. You can't have lightness without dark. And if you look at hair after summer at the beach, you notice all that beautiful contrast in there. So here I'm lying this back, the piece that I just painted, and I'm going to put my plastic wrap. Now the plastic wrap, to get it to adhere, I just place one finger on the scalp or the plastic.
Yep.
This is a mannequin. And I just gently tuck it right behind there. So that way it doesn't bunch up and I can just get to my next subsection quickly.
Awesome. Daryl's come back with us. He's asked us, you mentioned earlier that you do this quite a fast application. How long would you take it for an application in the salon with this?
So I also cut. I do all dry cutting when I'm balayaging. So for a dry cut and a surface painting, which is our variation of the partial, around the top and the sides, I book an hour for both. And for a full, an hour and 15 minutes. This is going to be the more intricate of the two techniques that I'm showing today. The second one is a placement balayage. I call it a placement balayage because that is very, very much about working with the layering pattern in the hair. So this is more the way that I would do a traditional balayage. It's going to have a lot of brightness around the face and more depth through the back, but lightness through the ends.
A lot of tuning in now. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Lisa Harrington says she's noticed your standing position. I presume she's complimenting your posture there, but I'm not sure.
You know,
go on, sorry.
It's not always the way that I stand in the salon to do it, but I'm just trying to make sure that you all can see.
Also, Nicholas Solar said, what do you charge in your salon for this balayage service?
I charge for a balayage, oh my gosh, I should really know this better. I think I charge $225. But, you know, it's going to be, that's in US dollars, and it's going to be very different depending on your demographic. So, you know, something in New York City, you might pay $500 for something. In my salon, that's going to be $275. But I always charge for my work, though. You know, it's like, even if I'm quick in my application techniques and it only takes me 20 minutes, they're paying for the thousands of hours that I've educated myself. So.
We're huge fans of that concept on Hair Socials. We've had a few business people come on and do speeches for us and try and sort of educate us on our worth, which is what you're doing. You mentioned that you do work for L'Oreal Professional. What kind of role do you have there?
I do. So I'm on the balayage team. So basically, L'Oreal Professional, we have two academies nationally in the U.S. One is in Southern California. The other one's in New York City. And I work teaching balayage in those two academies. I've also done work for international. I got to teach balayage at the 110th anniversary last year. So I do that. I also do in-salon programs when salons can book me. I do train the trainer, like all of the above, everything. And I love every second of it because I'm really doing what I'm passionate about.
That's all.
So I'm working up here. Before I place the plastic on, I want you to see my sectioning here. Notice how it goes higher up towards the top around the face and drops lower here. So when I talked about negative space before, that's negative space right there. The sun doesn't hit the hair right here, so I don't paint the highlight up to there. So if you've got clients that have been used to getting foils for a long time, it's very important that, because everybody wants balayage, it's a buzzword, it sounds fancy, it's French, but do they really know what it is? So for a first-time client, I'm always going to educate them on how it looks, because, you know, if I do it without the disclaimer that there's going to be more depth back through here, and I've got a die-hard foil client, she's going to pick her hair up right in that spot and say, why is it dark there? So I always try to cover myself in that way.
So Lisa Harrington's come back to us with quite an honest sort of comment, really. She's put, as much as she loves doing balayage, it scares her. She's had some excellent results, and she's also had some very poor results, and that's her honesty. What was your biggest tip on balayage?
People ask me that question all the time. It's patience. Be patient with yourself, and you have to realize that it doesn't happen in a day. I've been doing it for 12 or 13 years, and I'm very, very self-critical. And I still have times, almost on every single head, where I'm like, I like it, but that could have been better. So just go easy on yourself. And one thing, if you're trying to do it in the salon and you're still trying to get your speed up, book balayage at the end of the day. That way, if you start overthinking your sectioning and you get through 3/4 of the appointment and you haven't even started in the front yet and your next client's early, you won't be stressed out, because can be like a very traumatic experience as well.
Somebody's worked it out for us. We think that your prices are about £160, £170 over here. So welcome to England, by the way, and the Great Britain. We have an audience of nearly 11,000, but I think just short of 10,000 of them are UK based. So welcome to to our community.
Thank you so much.
Um,
I've only been to London twice, and it was both on connections to Paris.
oh, bless you. So you haven't even seen England yet?
No, just from above.
Oh, bless you. Well, I just want to say a massive thanks to take this opportunity to thank Darren Oram. Darren Oram recommended you. He's a friend of Hair Socials. Sorry, my dog. We used to work together at L'Oreal in England. So yeah, massive thanks to Darren for recommending you and getting you in touch.
Oh, Darren's great. Yeah, he's been with us for a couple of years. He's the big boss, and he's just so humble, and he's so committed to the artistry of hair and hair education. So definitely big thanks to Darren. So now this is where I save time because I'm painting the crown, but I'm still in my front section. So when I go back to do the back, I've taken a lot of the guesswork out of it, and I'm looking at where this will split where the hair is dry. So that is right at the whorl. So I want to make sure that in through here, I'm very, very lightly dry brushing. Because if you've got a big stripy highlight that falls, looks pretty, especially when the wind blows. If you want something to look natural and you put heavy highlights in the crown, unless you do a root shadow after, it's just not going to look natural. So I'm always asking myself, is this going to look natural? And the answer is yes.
You're getting a lot of love. People saying welcome to Hair Social. Someone else says, Eleni says welcome to the family. Eleni's from Cyprus, so you're being watched all over the world right now.
Oh, thank you. Proud to be a part of the family. Great. I'm excited. And you know what? I have to say, I've been doing a lot of live from my bedroom, which sounds a little scandalous, but throughout this whole lockdown, I've done work for a lot of live stuff for L'Oreal Professional, some for hair.com and Hairbrained, and it has helped me. It has been like my savior throughout this entire process because I've been able to stay connected to a community, and I think that it's so important that we stay connected with our community of beauty professionals because, you know, even though we can't be together right now, being part of a community, it just, like, for me at least, being part of something bigger really, really makes a big difference in how I feel about my career and what I do. So thank you for asking me to do this.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of positives come out of lockdown for myself, and I think getting to meet people like yourself and find artists around the world that I would possibly have never have met or heard of should this opportunity not have come. So yeah, just embracing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've connected with a lot of cool new people too. I've got a lot of people from India have been watching my stuff. So that's so cool because the approaches at doing hair are completely different. They think about things that I don't have to think about. Like, you know, once in a while I'll have somebody with jet black hair, but a lot of the time my clients are between, you know, level 4 to 6. And so it's that networking. And not networking for benefit, just networking because, you know, we speak the same language. It's really beneficial.
Well, interestingly, a watcher, I've not seen the name before, so it must be new. It's called Jaya Rayo, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but it says, Sebastian is my virtual guru. I am from India, and I've learnt so much from him.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I'd have to see the spelling because I don't know how to pronounce most of the words, unfortunately. But thank you for tuning in. Super excited to be here.
Go on, sorry.
So now you can see as I'm working up the hairline here, I'm continuing to over direct the hair away from the face. So from that angle, it just looks like it's straight back. But you can see right there, I am toggling this piece between two different angles. So in this way, I can paint the surface, but I can also over direct back and I can paint the front of the piece too. So that I call three-dimensional balayage because you're painting two separate planes of the head and joining them together through the ends, but you still have that depth and negative space falling behind it, and that's what makes it so pretty.
Mary McNamara has said, if your client is 90% grey, so she needs a root colour as well, what do you recommend?
Well, if she wants balayage and she wants like a touch-up, I see this all the time. It depends on what she's looking for in the balayage. So you've got two different types of clients. I've got clients that are like, I don't want the highlights anywhere closer to my root than like right here, because they don't like the look of like on root highlights. So those people, I can definitely put on the single process for sure, and then paint the balayage through the mid lengths and the ends. If I've got a client that wants something more traditional, like I'm doing now, I would have to do this in 2 steps. Anything that touches the root, or if they want to see it on the root, I'd have to do it in 2 steps. But I have a technique, because balayage is low maintenance and people really care the most about what falls around the face. If you do a single process, towel dry the hair very, very well after shampooing the single process out. You can actually paint 10 highlights right around the frame of the face, let them process for 15 minutes, and it gives them the feeling that they've had like both done, but it only adds a little bit of time to the service. So now what I'm going to do, I don't know if you're familiar with the term money piece, but the money piece falls on the dominant side of the part, right on the part line. And this is the piece that people pay for. So I want this piece to be very pronounced, and I just want it to just frame everything out. And people go crazy when they can already see the highlights and their hair is still wet. So this is the piece that they can see when they're sitting in front of the mirror with soaking wet hair and saying, oh my gosh, I can already tell that the color is going to be awesome. So what I do is I smooth the hair. So smooth with these, pretend that these 2 fingers are like a flat iron, smoothing the hair, right? Smooth it. So I'm going away from the face, and I'm going to paint 3 points of connection, one right joining the top and the front hairline, so right there, another one right here, and then I'm going to flip it forward, toggle it down this way, and I'm going to paint one there. So it's a pretty big piece of hair, and it's got a lot of negative space because it's so large, but the ends are all going to be light. So it's a perfect balance of depth and lightness.
You'll have a lot of people getting close to the screen as I am. Obviously, people can't see me, but I'm nose touching the screen at the minute because this is a massively popular service in England and probably around the world then if it's as popular there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's, people, I mean, I grew up doing hair in the generation of like people wanting a million foils with like 4 different colors. And, then balayage comes along, and I feel like it started to show up more during our recession in maybe 08, 09, because it was less maintenance, right? And people didn't mind some root showing. And then it really took off because, the ombre, that whole ombre movement was nothing touching the root except right around the face. And I think, at least what someone told me that knows their stuff, is that when we had our recession, that stylish people that were young and were making $160,000 a year working in New York City, they all lost their jobs. And instead of getting foils every 6 weeks, they had to let their roots grow out, and then they had to start shopping vintage at thrift stores. And then all of a sudden, the movement of like boho style started, and then it was all over the place. So I love seeing how the times translate into hair. And I'm wondering what is going to happen with this whole pandemic thing, because obviously this has been the hugest thing that's happened in our world in a really long time. So I'm interested to see how that's going to reflect in hair. And I'm thinking that the ombre may make a pretty strong comeback in one way or another.
We're so obviously you're in a different culture in a different country, obviously to us. What position are you at lockdown at the minute? Because we've been given a date of July the 4th, which is your Independence Day. Topical.
That's when your lockdown ends. So it goes state to state. In our country, it depends. So I'm in Massachusetts. And some salons have been open for probably 3 weeks already. Massachusetts, tomorrow is the day that we can legally open. And so that's where we're at with it right now. We're going in phases in Massachusetts, and salons are in phase 1, which honestly I was so shocked because, it's a career where we're touching people all the time. So, I'm going back into my salon. We are being very, very cautious with our protocols. We're doing things like we're only doing by appointment, which is generally the way that I operate anyway. But The door is pretty much locked, and we call whoever's going to be waiting in the parking lot when their appointment is ready to start. Our sitting area is shut down, and they just go right with their stylist, and 6 feet apart, social distance awareness, and sanitizing everything. So it should be interesting to see how it feels going back.
We have to. I've seen some countries. I've spoken to a lady in Dubai who says that they have to do thermometer testing for the temperature on the way in. Is that something you have to do?
That is an optional practice. It's an optional practice in Massachusetts. So guys, again, right here in the back, I'm painting some of the back of the head from the front. So that eliminates the need for additional subsectioning. So crown's right here. So I can either split this up into 2 sections, or I can just take it as one. But what I'm doing is I'm holding this hair at 45-degree angle from the scalp, and that is what gives me the most tension when I'm painting towards the root. As I work down through zones 2 and 3, so the mid-lengths and the ends of the hair, I start to drop down my section closer to the natural fall, which keeps it tight in the mid-length area. And then when I come back up here to paint, I'm lifting it again.
That's awesome. You're getting so much love for your explanation. Danielle Butler is just one of the 5 or 6 I've read while we've been talking, saying, "Hi guys, this is so satisfying to watch. You are so good at explaining." A lot of people have said this.
Thank you so much. I'm actually like a huge balayage geek, so all the little details are like I live for those details. But when you learn these things starting out, I was such a mess when I started balayaging. I almost gave it up just because I was such a wreck. But you get these little aha moments, and sometimes it's those little tiny tidbits of information. It could be the smallest thing to the educator, but it's actually the thing that's going to help somebody go between like a C+ and a B+ in their application skills. So now I'm going to work on this side of the head. I always start on the left side because when I'm working on camera, this side always looks not as good because I'm a right-handed person, so please forgive me. Full disclosure.
This is what we love. This is why I think that this platform's working so well in such a short period of time, because it is a bit raw. It is very unprofessional, but it's kind of unique in the fact that we get to see the proper artist work.
Yeah. It's like I feel like when it's unfiltered and authentic, that's when people actually grow from the whole experience. So this has been a big growth experience for me. And especially, setting the camera up so you guys can't see like the disaster that is the rest of my house right now. I've been perfecting that over the past 2 months.
Did you say? Interesting you say that. I'll cover for you while you're in your awkward position. But we've started a feature on our Instagram because we've only just started kicking that off, and that's got up to 3,000 already. But we've done an Instagram takeover where we want to see the other side of the camera. We want to see the mess of your house. Do you do yoga? Do you do Pilates? Anything. We want to see it, and that's gone down really well. Like you said, hiding it is all game.
You do not want to see the rest of the room right now. Oh, it's terrible. And like our kitchen is the biggest disaster of the entire house. So that's the room that I should be in, but that's the room that I'm like the most ashamed of. And I said to myself, when we first got put on lockdown and I was in total denial, and I'm like, oh yeah, we'll go back to the salon in a week. Our president was saying that we'd be back in church packing the pews by Easter. And I'm like, okay, so I'll go home and I'll clean my house for a week. And so now it's 2.5 months later. 2.5 months has gone by and my house is still a disaster. So
Tracy Dunbar's come in with a question. Would you always cover the film to help it process?
Yes, I do. It's a key part of my application. You do have clay lighteners or lighteners that are self-encapsulating, but I find that using the plastic wrap really helps because it's not metal like foils. It's a heat conductor, so I don't have the advantage of that. So the plastic wrap really traps in the heat from the scalp. And so I really need it because I don't like to use heat too much if I don't have to in my application. And on top of that, balayage is a very organic approach to the hair. And I like being able to see the subsections that I've already painted. And because plastic wrap, obviously it's clear, I can do that. And so that way I can brick layer my pieces. Right now I'm working in horizontal subsections. On my next technique, I'll be working in diagonal sections, but horizontally, you need to make sure that the pieces aren't stacking on top of each other, because if they do, then it gives kind of an artificial appearance. So plastic wrap is my friend.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm mirroring my subsections from the other side of the head, but what I do is the difference between the weak side of the part and the dominant side, I add an extra subsection on the dominant side, and the money piece on the weak side is not as pronounced. It's just a little bit less hair. But my application, my methodology is still the same, and my sectioning is still the same. So the goal is I've got that little bead of product right on the edge of my brush. So the goal is to take that bead and just smooth it throughout the hair. So typically, if I'm doing this and I stroke it on the hair more than 4 times, I'm going to have to add more product to it. One of the things that I see people doing a lot when they start with balayage is they do this. They paint the hair, and instead of adding more product, they just pummel the hair with the product over and over again. So what that does is it actually transfers the product onto the underside of the hair, which will cause like marbleizing and bleeding. And it also wipes the product off the top of the hair. So what you'll have is just marbleizing and spots and nothing on the surface. It'll all be through the interior, which is not a desirable thing. But those are just they're the little tidbits that you get from learning. So I learn something new every time I teach, because sometimes my students will ask me a question why I'm doing something the way that I am, and I have to think about it. So it's all a learning. That's education. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm new to the education world. I've only been doing it a couple of years now, and I must admit that people asking me why I do it, I've had to sort of analyse why am I doing it, because we just kind of pick up tips and tricks and don't understand why we do them. So you have to re-educate yourself almost, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's all about, for me, I just want to be able to touch everyone in a special way. That sounded really bad. I just want to be able to. Everybody learns differently. So you've got audio people that when they hear something, that's when they remember it. And you've got visual people, and when they see it. And like for me, I'm a kinesthetic learner. I have to be there doing it with my hands. I have to see it first and then do it with my hands. But a big learn thing for me is that, if I start getting frustrated with someone in my salon, say that they're not learning something, and I'm explaining it again and again and again, I'm like, why are they not getting it? It's not them, it's me, because I can't speak to what they need. I mean, given not everybody's a natural at doing hair. That being said, people need to be educated in their own language.
Couple of questions coming actually for you. Eleni Celiaris has said, do you always cover it, or do you sometimes leave it open air?
Always cover it. I always cover it.
Lisa Harrington has just wanted to clarify. She was the one who said that she sometimes has bad balayages. She said, with that explanation, that she now knows where she's been going wrong. Thank you, with capital letters.
Yeah, of course. Got to ask the questions. Being vulnerable and asking the questions may be the hardest thing that you have to do, because it's exposing yourself, but you cannot get the answers if you're not willing to listen and ask the questions.
Absolutely. Jaya from India has said, what impact horizontal sections and diagonal sections make?
Huge impact. This is my traditional balayage. So traditional balayage, I go through horizontally, like 90% of the time when I'm in the salon, I'm alternating between horizontal and diagonal sectioning. So in the back of this head, I'm going to do a 3-section diagonal sectioning. That will be very effective and work very, very quickly. Diagonal is great because when you're working diagonally, if you think about it, vertically, you don't really do balayage vertically unless you're pulling all the hair straight back off the head. Horizontally, you can really work horizontally, and it adds, you have to be careful where your placement goes, because if they stack on top of each other, it's going to look too weighty, because horizontal lines, it's like a bob. So no matter what you're doing, horizontal is going to give you like structure and weight. So when you have diagonal sections, it kind of gives you the benefit of vertical sectioning, which is going to elongate the shape, and horizontal. So it has the most movement, and you can also cover the most plint of the head by working diagonally. And then you've got diagonal back, you've got diagonal forward, and there, I start getting really geeky again.
Becky Bailey has tagged her friend in it and said, "This is really good. He's so good at teaching."
Oh, thank you so much.
So I've just asked the audience just a second ago, so there's not many answers coming yet. But where is everybody watching from? So we have Cumbria in the UK, we have Bridlington, we have Cyprus, Limassol, your friend who's come to follow you all the way from India. So yeah, North Yorkshire, Newcastle, they're all over the country anyway.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to come to England and not just be at Heathrow for an hour and a half. I would love to see it. It just looks so beautiful and historic. And, I'm in New England, so we think that we probably have more of an English influence than any other part of the country, the 13 colonies. So, we've got some of the names, I think, probably of the towns come from an English background, but, I really, really want to see it. And I would love to do some hair education over there and learn some stuff from your educators, because the British are just known for being amazing hairdressers.
All four, and that we've got England, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland all checked in. So yeah, we are contemplating doing a hair socials event in the future. If should this carry on growing at the rate it's growing, so you will be definitely on the list of invites.
Gosh, I would love to come to that. That sounds wonderful. I think you learn the most truly when you're out of your comfort zone. And being in a different continent is definitely out of my comfort zone. That's why I like people to come to the academies. If you've never been to New York, and I've got people that are coming from the middle of America, so like Missouri or Kansas, and they come to New York City, they are so out of their comfort zone that the learning becomes even better, because they're totally removed and they don't have defense mechanisms. That's really getting into the psychology of education, but it's true. We study all these. All right, so finish with the front here, and I'm going to turn my mannequin. So just, you can see again, the pieces on the top, they do not touch each other. So I don't want, if I put a piece on the left, I don't want the piece on the right to touch it exactly, because then it starts to look fake. And so my friend Teresa says, she's another educator for L'Oreal, she says they should be sisters and not twins, the two sides of the balayage. Okay, so now in the back, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of mold the plastic wrap away from the back here. I'm going to take out a section for the crown, just like a little U shape. My sections, I don't get too hung up on them. I really just go with the head shape. So wherever the head changes from a flat to a round is usually where I put a subsection. So I'm going to do that. And then what I'm going to do here is, dropped my comb. What I'm going to do here is go tilt the head down a little bit. And I'm going to go right from the back of the ear to the center of the nape on both sides. I'm going to clip this up. So this is the entire back. And then I'm going to be able to paint the back of the ponytail in one section. Now this is a lot easier to do if you can have someone look in the salon, when I do this maneuver, my clients look way down like that. But if I do this to my doll head, she will fall on the floor. So I can't do that.
I've just shared for everybody who's tuned in. I've just shared your social media handle. I've done it a couple of times. A few people have already checked in saying they're now following you.
Oh, thank you. I post all the time, as much as I possibly can, and it's usually about balayage. Once in a while I throw something in there about my dogs, but I'm obsessed with hair color and balayage. So if you have questions after this, you can always DM me. You know, what I do is after I do a live broadcast for someone else, I'll jump on my Instagram and do a live personally where I finish the technique. I can't do that, but frequently I'll just be on there painting live, and it's really fun. I love the connection.
Danielle Butler's asked, would you always start at the sides first and then the back?
No, I do everything. I start in the back probably 75% of the time, but what I like to do is start with the meat of the tutorial, because usually what I'll do is I'll do part of the back, and then I will just finish the other side of the back when I'm off camera. That way I can kind of pack in a little more information there. So I'm just over directing this hair right back away from the face, and I'm just softly painting pieces, just almost touching the scalp a little bit away. And this typically is something that I would do on a blonde. So brunettes, typically I'm going to, if they want highlights in the back, I'll more space them out and do it through the interior. But if somebody wants to wear their hair up and see highlights, this is kind of how I approach that situation. I never want to do too much. And I used to be one of these people that you'd see, and they were doing like 50 different points in the area. And I kind of got over that, because it's like taking the whole idea of balayage away. The more that you do, the more maintenance you're creating. So I'm a minimalist now. So, you know, this might, if I was putting 4 foils in the hair, I might be able to put 4 foils in the amount of time that it's taking me to do this. But look how much ground I'm covering. This is subsections 4 inches long and 3 inches deep.
Your friend in India, Jaya, has said, why do you overdirect?
What, I overdirect it so I can access the actual contour. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to place my plastic wrap fully and just wrap it right around. And then if this was a person in the salon, I'd probably put a cotton pad right there so it wouldn't touch her skin. So now I've got this entire back section here. Straighten her up a little. I've got the entire back section under the crown here. And what I'll do, you know, if I can manage the whole section with my hands, I will paint the whole thing at once. The larger and more dramatic looking the subsections are, that actually it creates the softest diffusion. Because if you think about it, we're lightening the ends, right? So working in small sections is going to give me the most highlighting through the new growth, like at the roots. But when I'm taking a huge subsection of hair like this and painting it all at once, the pronounced part is going to be through the ends. And this will all be very, very soft looking. So this is like a great thing that you could do for a brunette balayage for softness.
I have a question for you. In England now, we're starting to see a lot more divided price list structures. So, for example, a full balayage, a balayage touch-up, etc., etc. Do you have just one specific balayage on your price list?
We offer 2. So a surface painting and a full painting. So the full is the whole head. So what I'm doing right now, I would consider a full. Because again, I charge for like the knowledge that it takes to get me there. I don't charge per square inch. So anytime I'm working below the crown is pretty much, or anytime I'm working like occipital down, I'm going to charge for a full. It just depends on how much I like the person. And I say a surface painting is basically It's the crown, the top, and the sides. And I don't like to say partial. I don't know. Do you use the term partial highlight in England?
Yeah, we're still old-fashioned in England. It is a partial highlight, but majority of practice will say half a head of highlights.
Yeah. So I like to just like the verbiage of the thing. I think if people hear partial, they think they're not getting the full thing. And it's just a little trick, if it's a partial or it's half, then they're not getting the entire thing, right? Which we know is true because they're not getting their whole head done. But just like in the mind, I like to think of it being like, you're not just getting a partial something, you're getting the full experience. So that's why we do that's why we call it a surface. So just two different prices. I'm a la carte. Mostly when I do a balayage, generally I will do a gloss with it, but sometimes if I like the way the hair looks and I like the way the raw pigment looks and it's just like the underlying pigment, I don't always do a gloss. Generally, so I upcharge for that. So I don't bundle things. I don't like bundling anything. Everything's a la carte. So here I am in the crown, and I'm just moving this around naturally. And fortunately, mannequins actually do kind of have growth patterns. I think it's determined by however they were taken out of their box when they were shipped, but it kind of makes it convenient when you're talking about natural whorl patterns. So I like to separate it to see where it's going to split. So it splits there, right? So all I do, for a soft look, I just don't want to be right on top of the root with too heavy saturation. Where the hair jumps away from the scalp is usually where I will try to paint a little bit because, again, you don't want too much there because it looks fake, but if you don't do anything there, then it looks cheap. So I always want to find the perfect balance. Not too much, but definitely a little something. A little something to show up. So starting in the middle of the hair, working my way up to the scalp. So the sectioning in the back here is really more the way that I would paint, like, this is my client in the back here who comes twice a year.
Yeah.
The front is a client that comes 3 times a year, 4 times a year. But you can see that you can tell exactly how it's going to look when it's all styled and done. That's one of the beautiful things about balayage. You can really see what's going on. So if there's a problem, you can fix it before you move on. And just
Elaine's come in and said so many great tips. A few other people have said it as well also, but there's just so many people coming in saying they would do that. A lot of people saying they like to over direct for the softness. And then we had another one here, but I've lost it now. But yeah, all popular opinions, mate, anyway.
Just glad that you guys are learning some stuff. So, that's a full head right there. So full head, and I was talking, and it took me 45 minutes. So you can imagine like how quickly and effectively I can work in the salon. I just don't overthink it. That's the whole philosophy behind my balayage. I personalize it, but I just do it by location. Rather than thinking about the quantity, I do it by like, where does it need to be? So you can see what that'll look like when it's all said and done.
Quick question before you end. That looks absolutely incredible. I think everyone will agree. The fact that you've done that in 50 minutes talking is incredible. Mary McNamara said, do you ever backcomb the hair when you do this service?
I do that more when I started balayage, and that is a great way if you're like learning, if you're segueing into balayage, but you still want a little additional layer of comfort. But I don't really do the backcombing too much anymore because I feel like I can really desaturate better when I'm just freehand painting. So what I'm going to do here, I just thought I'd give you a little demo of how I would paint like a curtain fringe, because this is something that we're going to see a lot. So just talk about my haircut for a second here. It's like a modern shag that I straightened out. And so I'm just going to approach this. I'm only going to paint half of the head, but I want you to see how quickly I can get through this, because this is really going to be about super effective sectioning. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the sides and I'm going to clip out the fringe. I'm going to paint that last. For this kind of thing, you really have to look at the fringe because, like a traditional fringe sectioning, you pivot off like where the head changes shape here to the corners of the brows. But now these fringes that are very popular right now, they go way back and really wide. So it's going to be different for every client. Okay, so I'm just going to show you on half the head here, but I'm going to take this and I'm going to section from the corner of the fringe to behind the ear. And then I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to make a little zigzag. So it's like peaks and valleys. I can see exactly where I have to highlight here, no problem. So I can work even faster because I'm not too overly focused on her being able to see blonde or highlights when she pulls her hair back. So here with this one, I'll paint it with a larger brush because I want something fast and effective. And I'm highlighting all the hair, but it's in big sections. So this will give me lightness and variation, but it will also take less time. And it'll be very, very visible results with minimal sectioning.
What brush are you using now?
This one, it's a larger brush, it's a L'Oreal Professional brush. It's a Dialite brush. You could do this with a smaller brush too. It's just a matter of how much product you want to get on the hair. And I use a lot of different types of brushes. I like some of the L'Oreal Professional brushes are great. I love the Fremar brushes because they have those tapered bristles, which is great. So now I'll just put one piece of plastic right here. So that's big time surface painting. Then I drop the rest of the side, and I'm just going to visually pop a few pieces in there. And I'm utilizing the knowledge that I have for working for years of balayage with, knowing the shape of the head. Where does this piece need to be the most effective? If I have one length hair and I work in a million different subsections underneath the parietal ridge, then I'm going to lose all those highlights. So for layers, working in diagonal subsectioning really, really makes sense. And this is definitely the type of a technique that I would do, like maybe do this at the same time with a single process and just keep it a little bit further away from the roots.
So this would be classed as a surface painting service?
Yes, yes, exactly. And in the crown here, I'm going to drop it down lower. So it's always higher towards the face. The highlights come up higher in the front, and the back, I do them lower or I do them softer. So now the way that I'm going to paint this fringe, in order to paint a fringe, I have to paint one piece on the other side. I need to create some kind of a visor. I mean, you have some other L'Oreal artists coming on, right?
Yeah, we do. We have a couple coming on. I don't want to pronounce the names wrong, so let me get the list up because I've had some serious cultural education with the names this year. Bear with me. I've got them all written down, and then we can never find them. But so we have Drew Schaefer coming on Tuesday.
That's my dude.
Is he a guy?
Drew. He is so talented.
Again, recommended by Darren, so thank you very much. He's going to show us a cutting demo, so that'll be a bit different from this balayage.
Yeah.
And then on Friday we have Min Kim. We do have her. What's she called? She's doing another balayage course, and we do have a couple of non-confirmed artists. But yeah, they're the three that we've got. You and them two.
Yeah. So what I've done here is, because these are so long, I had to have plastic on both sides. So I create a little visor with plastic. So when I drop this down, it will not touch her skin. And really, the idea of this is with fringe, you have to be very, very careful because if you put too much, then it's really going to take away from the look, and then you'll end up with like a full blonde fringe. And so I usually do only about 3 subsections at maximum for the fringe, and about 4 pieces per subsection, less as I'm working towards the top of the head. So I'm just painting it. I'm looking at where those highlights need to. I'm going to go on the other side here and do the same thing. With fringe, when the pieces fall above the cheekbone, then I do not place the planchette underneath. When the pieces are below the cheekbone, then I will, but there's really no zone 3 or end of the hair to speak of in most people's fringe, so I don't need to go crazy there. And it gives like a sunlit look when it's the mid-length on the fringe that is getting the most light. So instead of placing the planchette under, I just surface paint it and then I roll it off my finger like that. Very, very little product. I feel like fringe, I like to see the fringe a little bit darker than the rest of the design. I don't know why, but that kind of a look, like a dark fringe, always speaks to me. Because, especially if the person has light eyes, it gives such nice contrast to their skin tone. And it usually ends up working better with their eyebrows.
Yeah, Marcia Wilson's commented saying, never seen a fringe be balayage before.
This is it. This is the way.
It makes so much sense, really, doesn't it?
What's that?
It makes so much sense, really, when you're combining the rest of the hair to include the fringe.
Yeah. So really, like, I've done these before when I started. I used to always do foils in the fringe. I want to deal with the sectioning and everything getting in the way. But when I really committed to doing it like the traditional way, I would have people with like solid blonde fringes coming back every single time. So I learned, though, you want less hair. You want less highlights, and you definitely want the depth to be the dominant tone. And do not put the planchette underneath it. And that keeps the sunniness like running across the contour.
I've asked a lot of the people watching who's wanting to try this now. Everybody's commented, me. Eleni Celiaris, who works in Cyprus, has said she will be doing this on her clients tomorrow.
Yay! Definitely. If you can think of somebody to do it on within the first week, that's the best. Because if you do it within the first week, I think the statistic is if you do something 3 times within 7 days, you're going to anchor it in your mind. And the possible way that you can anchor knowledge is by teaching someone else. So if you have assistants and your salon is open at this point, teach them or walk them through it at least. Because I've been to a million different classes where it's like I see something amazing and then I completely forget and I never do it. And I wish that I could have done that differently, but we're busy. We have busy lives. So grab your mannequin heads if you have them at home and practice. So last piece here, very, very, very small pieces right through the top because this hair is super layered, like a lot of the fringes are right now. So I just want like just a little bit less is more. So in the salon, this full application would probably take me no more than 20 minutes for the whole head or for the surface painting. And then what I do with the remainder of the plastic is I just, once she's fully applied, I'll wrap it under a little bit and then I'll take a little piece of cotton and I just put that right under there so then if she's reading a magazine or something, she can. So that's it. That's all I got for today. But I hope that you got at least one thing out of it.
Well, I'll say for the audience, because I've seen the comment. Excuse me. I've seen the comments coming through. They are loving it. I've never seen so many people admit to sort of loving and learning from you. So thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, it was an honor.
Oh well, thank you very much, guys, and I'll let you say bye to everybody. But yeah, if you don't follow him already, it's Sebastian Colorist, spelled the American way, not the English way.
What's the English way? Is it the English way with an E-N?
Sebastian, but then colorist has a U in it.
Oh, colorist. Okay.
Yeah.
Colorist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yes. Thank you so much, everybody. And I really hope that everyone gets back to work nice and safe, and that we all can stick together as a community through these crazy times. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.